Hello and welcome to Capricorn Makes. My name is Stacy and this is a review on the Gem of Doll 1/4 scale girl body. Specifically, this is Fa Lang, which has the limited embossed body with a peacock and cuffs on her ankles and wrists, as well as a neck cuff. And she was released for Chinese New Year a few years ago. She's available periodically through events now. This is almost her full set. She has her full set involves a wig and some charms for her hair. This review also applies to the 1/4 scale girl body 003, which usually comes with the Sophier head. It is the same body as this with no embossing, and it's 45 centimeters tall. It also applies to the 1/4 scale girl body 001, which is the Sophier head, which is the same head sculpt as the Fa Lang, but it has more normal proportions. This has the elongations in order to make, you can see that the neck is quite long and the arms and legs are actually quite long, but just in the forearms and the bottom parts of the legs to accommodate the extra cuffs. The body that is the 001 is 43 centimeters and it has much more normal proportions. But as far as I can tell, the torso and the jointing system is all still exactly the same. Those are the only pieces, so no embossing, and then slightly more normal proportions on the forearms and the bottom legs. It does not apply to the 1/4 scale girl body, which is 002, because that is a chubbier, less mature sculpt. I don't necessarily think it is like a normal MSD body as opposed to a slim MSD body, but it is certainly much more stocky than this one, and it has a less defined waist and a much smaller bust. I believe the jointing system is similar, but because the pieces themselves, like the arms and the legs, are thicker, even if the jointing system does work the same, they are going to pose differently just because of the different shapes of the resin. It should be informative overall for Gem of Doll's jointing system in general, as many of the sculpts are engineered similarly, including their new SD body, and the old body is also pretty similarly jointed. It's pretty easy to take a look at their company photos. They generally have quite a lot of good company photos of their bodies that show off the posability and show off the way the joints work. Some of their full set dolls have more photos of the outfits themselves, but you can usually find really good photos of the bodies on the body pages. And I'm going to move to the table so we can get some more close-ups of her in action. Here you can see some of the up-close detailing of her embossing. This is quite a bit like the clisson detailing that would have been, or braiding. And again, she has it around her wrists and her ankles, and then the peacock itself is across 4 pieces. So it starts on her chest here and goes a bit up on the breast. It's actually quite, let me get this back. It's actually quite well designed so that when her torso moves, it doesn't actually touch the resin. You can see all of the various feathers in here, and then these are, so the under feathers as well. You can see the feathers in here, the feet, and then it wraps around to there. And again, it's been rather well designed so that it doesn't rub on itself. So the movement here is quite good. The movement in the thigh is quite good. The only thing that really has the potential to rub, and it comes all the way down her thigh like that. And these are actually quite delicate. This is very 3D, but if I get my finger here, I can actually pull them away, like if I wanted to. Like, they are on there well enough, but I have caught some threads underneath these, and I do worry a little bit about pulling like some of these outer fringed ones on. The ones that are in here, like in the main body of the piece, don't have that same feel to them. It's only these like really delicate ones. Oops, it's only these really delicate ones on the end that feel that way. The only rubbing that really can happen is that her body and her hand can touch. And I don't actually think there's an angle in which I can, unless I have her arm bent and I'm grating like her arm against her side like that, there isn't really a way for the body itself to easily rub on itself, which I think is quite a really well designed feature of these. I really quite loved the company face up, but this is one that I did on my own. I believe she takes 12mm eyes. I think these are 12s. They certainly look better than the 14s that she came with. And you could probably even go one smaller and have them look quite good. She has very oddly shaped eyes, and if I turn, you can see like just how much of a odd downward curve they have. It does make placing eyes slightly difficult, but these are high domed glass eyes and they are perfectly fine. The angle is quite bad for you to see the depth in them, but in reality these actually have golden sparkles in them, and they are quite lively. The shape of her eye does actually because there's so much extra on the side here, it lets a ton of light in where it otherwise might not. So even though her eye wells are a bit difficult to handle, they do catch light really well because they are not super tiny. Her head has kind of a limited range of motion, though I think if it was sueded, you can see how long her neck is. You can see like she can go down to there, but she won't hold it, and then she can tip back quite a ways, and then from side to side she gets about that. And I think again if she was sueded she would hold them a little bit better. I don't generally have much difficulty posing her at all when I do wish she could look down a little bit more consistently, but I'm not terribly worried about it. The head cap, it has a so there's the Gem of Doll. The head cap has very, very strong magnets, and I'm not sure I can get it off with this from this particular angle. There we go. They're just 2 magnets. The resin is nice and thick on everything. And my only complaint with this particular sculpt when it comes to the head back is that her head is very narrow, and so getting in there to adjust eyes with this S-hook in the way is a real pain in the butt. And because of that, let me see if I can, so I'm not sure you can see very well, the angle of the neck coming out to the angle of the S-hook means that to pull the S-hook straight out would come out the top of her head like this. It doesn't really want to bend very far back. So taking her head on and off is incredibly inconvenient. Like, it's doable, it's not difficult, it's just like it just doesn't feel good. It's not a good process, though it is a quick process. Like, it's not something I have to fiddle with. It's just like more trouble than I really care to do on a regular basis. So like I will actually just bend the S-hook down and sort of like poke everything in there, because I just would rather do that. Although it would be much easier to adjust her eyes without her head on and her S-hook in the way. Also the dips for the magnets does make it like really easy to align. And her head shape is it's actually quite good for wigs. I have had to cut down some wigs. I have like a 6'7" standard wig from Alice's collections that fits her pretty well. It is on the big side, but because she has quite a large dip in the back of her skull here, it does mean that as long as there is some tension, wigs fit on quite easily. so like with a silicone head cap, like things stay on pretty well. I also have taken a fur wig from Alice's collections in the MSD size, and it was far, far, far too big. I took maybe like 2 centimeters out of the back, but it also fits really well, and I'm really pleased with both of those wigs. Her ears are quite delicate. Like they have quite a sharp edge to them, but they're pretty sturdy. Like, I'm not really concerned about like catching them or anything like that. But yes, so that is that. So her shoulders are really quite simple. They move up and down, and if you want more motion, they go up. But they do hold at pretty much any angle. And I, just because of the design of her shoulder, it's not particularly noticeable when you have the arm upside down, because the shape of her upper arm, it does have some detailing, but it is in general like pretty indistinguishable whether or not you have it up or down when you're handling the doll. So these elbow joints are these are the ugly style from what I hear people say. So they give you that U-bend. It does give her incredible range of motion. She can touch her face. She can like hold the back of her neck. She does not need help. Like a lot of dolls can do this, but you have to be like, you have to basically like sort of wedge it up against the jaw, and that is not the case for her. Like she just puts her hand where you need it to be. And she actually has really good range of motion in her wrists. So from side to side, she has quite a lot of motion, and then back and forth. I really like these little hands, even though they are kind of childlike because they are like little small starfish hands, but they're very, 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 very expressive, and that's one of the things that I really like about her. This though, this is not attractive whatsoever. Like she does have, like, it looks quite nice when you're not looking at it, but this is just a travesty. However, yeah, that just really doesn't look good. However, I realized that you can fix that by popping the joint out, and she actually gets, actually before I do that, so her arm at rest sort of like collides with her body, like it wants to be like here or behind her or something, because her shoulders are quite narrow. I mean, she's quite long and lanky anyway. There we go. But she's quite long and lanky anyway, but like they don't feel very natural when she is upright. So it has taken me a little bit to figure out how to pose her, but she does actually look quite natural, like when I get her into position. Let me get these out of the way. So if you spin the joint around like this, so you end up with a really, with a joint that doesn't have that weird double bend, and it actually works pretty well. I don't know if this is intended, but it gives you quite a lot of options. You do, because there isn't, you're just kind of resting it in random places. It doesn't really, like this particular, pardon me, this particular configuration is not really stable. You can get a really good range of motion like this, but it does pull the strings out a little bit farther than usual. So as you can see, I'm trying to get a little bit out from here, but it gives you more options if you're trying to get the arms close into the body without that strange double elbow shape. Bending the arms, I find like there are a lot of ways to bend, because you have the two joints. So like if I am just doing something simple cross body, I'll do the bottom one But wherever you bend, that is where the extension of the arm comes from. So this arm bent here, like if you bend it up at the top, like you can see how much, like way too long. There we go. You can see how much, like, the distance between here and the elbow is, it only comes to like right there, and people are not shaped like that. So you sort of have to pick the best bend point for when you are posing her. And I also find that like when I'm getting her into position, she does want to kick into certain positions, but I can find holding positions just fine. Sometimes I have to like work my way from like one edge to the next to get those in between poses, but I am still quite pleased, and I do think her posability would be even greater with some sueding, but I wanted to do this review without any extra help, any wiring or anything like that. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with the way those work. Like again, she does look like really unnatural sort of in the in-between poses, but the final event is really wonderful. So her legs have a similar jointing system to her elbows in that they are double jointed, and they fold up completely up against her body with no problems whatsoever. This is not floppy at all. Like, she very much wants to be here, and she has a great degree of articulation. She will stay like just about anywhere that you put her. Like sometimes you have to go a little bit farther to come back to sort of set the string, but that is the lower joint, and then the upper joint again has like, I guess I really like the fact that she's very snappy, in the sense that when she wants to hold, like the poses that she's designed to hold are incredibly stable while still giving you a lot of like nuance in shape. These ankles have a lot of movement while being they have a little bit of side-to-side movement because it is on a ball. But it is really nice because when she's sitting, I'll just put her upright. When she's sitting, her feet can hang like feet would hang, and that's really, really nice. It also makes some positions way more natural. So like if she is like if she's sitting on her legs, like so, her feet naturally want to tuck up, which is quite nice. She does sit really well in a number of different positions. She can be cross-legged, she can kneel, she can crouch, she can, like, it all looks pretty good. I mean, like, yes, you're gonna get that that odd, like, big knee thing, but like when you're looking at the doll overall, it's really really lovely. And considering her torso shape, and she only has the single joint in her torso, she can actually get a pretty good slouch going on. So like, probably if she wasn't sitting like this, she could slouch more, but like, that's quite a pronounced slouch. And she actually can bend back quite a bit more. There is a little bit of a shelf in there, but it's not, like, it's not meant to rest on anything. I think it's just production pieces. The other thing that her legs can do, so she's got the mobility joint in her thigh, which is really lovely for the side-to-side movement to get some interesting poses, but she can, like many of these, she does have a rest here so that her leg can go completely up. Ta-da! So, and like, it makes it quite, so she can do things like sit with her knee up. Doo-doo-doo. Yeah. so she can sit, and she likes, I mean, she'll stay. She stays really, really well. Like I'm shaking this doll, and she's just like, whatever, I'll stay here. This is fine. La la la. And I think that's what I really like about her, because once you get her into some of these positions, like, she wants to be there. She wants to hold those positions for you. She wants to stay there. Her feet will fall into natural positions. Like, it is a bit fiddly, but she also is incredibly versatile, and I really, really like that about her. And it looks really nice. Like, I don't really understand why, like, how, like, yes, her joints are really awkward, but you get, like, I can have her recline. I can have her, you know, point her toes. The only thing about these thigh joints, this one works all right, and it's not too much of a problem, but in clothes, one of the things that happens is that her thigh piece will spin around. So you'll end up with her like this inside of clothing. And you can't tell. Like, you'll just have like a knee at a funny angle, and you'll go to sit her down, and like, you can't, because it doesn't bend that way. It's not meant to bend that way. So you do sometimes have to completely undress her in order to spin the thigh around. But, you know, I'm willing to deal with that kind of irritation in order to have the extra mobility, because it's just, she's got a lot of flexibility because of that. So one of the things that she doesn't have is a lot of side-to-side movement in her leg, like this. I do have, I think both of my other dolls have much, much, much more side to room, but you can see how the way her hip comes down, it does keep that from happening. That doesn't mean she doesn't have side-to-side movement. So if I spin this out, I can actually position into like a wider stance. Like, so, like, she can stand quite wide like this, but it does require some manipulation of these joints. And again, I don't mind fiddly, because the end result is really, really worth it for me. So one of the only things that I'm concerned about with this body, and I don't know if it is these bodies in general or if it is just my particular one, is that so the legs pop into the sitting position with this little, oops, with this little shelf here, which is good. It's what it needs to do. But this one clicks really badly. Like, I don't know if it's I just have to be really careful, because I am concerned about the thinness right here. Like, I am concerned that I will pull, and because it pops, it goes like that. I am concerned that, like, this one feels nice and thick over here. It's not see-through at all, but that other piece right there, I am a little bit worried that I might get a chip there. And because this particular body is not really replaceable unless I buy a full doll all over again, that is a big concern for me. Now this side fits a little bit, actually we've got it spun a bit funny, but like the two sides fit a little differently. I think this is like more of the normal fit for here, but this one, because of the extra detailing, because they are trying to keep it from touching, because there is more material right there, it does have this gap. It doesn't change anything at all. Like, I can get it to sit there, but it turns her hip out, just because it is designed so that these particular pieces don't rub on one another, which I really appreciate. I am probably going to paint her in the new year, and yeah, I'm a little bit, I have a feeling I'm going to be pretty precious about this, because this is going to be an enormous time investment, blushing her body, and I'm just not going to want to I'm not going to want to worry about that. So, hi. Oh, her feet. Her feet are, they look pretty big in comparison to her, but it's just because she's so lanky. These are actually itty bitty tiny feet. Like, I think mini Moe feet are just slightly bigger than these are. Although, I believe anything that would fit the Moe would fit these girls. And the detailing on them is quite nice. Hold on. The detailing on the toes themselves is quite nice. I love the little nails. The bottoms of the feet are pretty flat. They don't have a lot of like indentation here, but there is some nice detailing on the toes themselves. And again, on the hands, that same sort of nail structure is still there, so that is still really lovely. And actually on this one you can see I had a fall and I broke 2 of her fingers. So the resin on this, again, feels really quite good. She had a face plant, and I thought she'd hit her face, but it was her hand, which, because I had it like that. But it hasn't broken, and it's still quite good, and they don't sell replacement hands for this particular body. But I contacted Alice's Collections. I did say this in another video, but I contacted Alice's Collections, and within 2 hours they had gotten back to me. They had talked to Gem of Doll, and they made me a replacement hand for like $10, so that is pretty sweet. So that's on its way, but just the fact that they didn't break right off and they didn't shatter, I think is a really good sign. I'm just going to put a wig on her while I finish talking. Her color is quite a buttery white. Like I was really surprised when the promo pictures said that she was a white-skinned doll, because the promo pictures of her make her look really quite like pink and fleshy, and like on camera she probably doesn't look terribly white-skinned either. In comparison to Mirror Doll resin, she is very warm. Warmly toned. Like Mirror Doll is quite paper white, and even my long sole, she's quite a bit darker. Let me grab him so that you can see. I don't know if you'll be able to see on camera. No, you can't. She is probably more similar to the long sole white, but she's got more depth to her. So I find that to be really interesting, and I don't know how easy this would be to match other companies at all. Her stringing was quite good out of the box. I don't remember if I had to, like, I think maybe I had to tighten her arms, but it wasn't very much. And the string quality it's nice and thick, and it's quite easy to deal with. I had a couple of other things I wanted to say. Where were we? Oh, yes. Would I recommend a Gem of Doll body? I would say that their angularness and unusual proportions aren't for everyone. They do require some patience while posing, and they are not very natural posers. They look incredibly awkward between poses. However, they look absolutely amazing once posed, and in like an environment they look really good, like lounging on a couch, or they don't perch. I mean, they can perch, but they don't have to perch. They can actually look like they're sort of flumped into like into a chair, or reclining on a bed, or propped up on a pillow, or they just have a lot of versatility in posing. And I am absolutely going to be buying a second body, no questions asked. My only consideration is whether to duplicate this body for her, because I am concerned about catching the feather pieces on clothing, and once I get this body blushed, I don't actually want to cover it up with clothing. So in order to preserve this, I am actually going to be buying her a plain body. I just am not sure if I'm going to be doing the 03 body, which is this same body with the long neck and long arms and lower legs, or if I'm going to be going for the more normally proportioned 001 body, which is 43 centimeters instead of 45. And this is a very tall 45. She's almost 46. Or both. Probably eventually both. I like the aesthetic. And while it's not an inexpensive hybrid, I think it could be a really unusual hybrid because you really don't see that many of them out there. Like, I can count the number of people on one hand that I have talked to that have a 1/4, like the MSD girls at all. Like, I know there are more out there. I've seen more, but just they don't seem to be terribly thick on the ground. And I think it's a shame because these are really nice little bodies. And I really do recommend these little bodies if you are looking for something a little bit different. I think there are a few of the Doll Chateau sculpts, like head sculpts, that are similar to these in aesthetic, though I cannot remember any names off the top of my head. The other sculpt that is that was released at the same time, the Sing head, or the Sophia head, is really, really similar to like one of the Doll Chateau Kid heads, and I think some of those hybrids could be quite interesting. But yeah, like I have more heads coming in the mail. I'm looking forward to seeing who else looks good on this body, and that's it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.